Hi, this is Jordan from Recap Animation. All properties are owned by their respective companies. Please enjoy. Previously, we saw Toyohisa and the elves killed the soldiers sent to the village to check on them. He then went to the Lord's castle with Nobunaga, Yoichi, and the elves and took it over. Later, the elves start taking over parts of the Ort Empire. Still, the leaders don't care because they are already at war with neighboring countries. One day, Toyohisa and his friends feel like something is wrong. Then, near where the elf settlement is located, Joan of Arc and Gilles de Rais are seen approaching as they get orders from the Black King to kill Drifter. Back to the story. Yoichi says he has an eerie feeling, while Toyohisa remarks that something is coming near. It's the disgusting smell of a bloody battle. Meanwhile, Joan of Arc and Gilles de Rais find the location of the abandoned castle, and there they find the elves and attack them. She calls for the drifters while massacring the elves. As they arrive, she chooses to take on Toyohisa while telling Gilles to take on Yoichi. Then Joan starts burning everything using magic while cornering Toyohisa with fire. Then suddenly, Olminyu comes and creates walls with talismans to protect Toyohisa. He then quickly takes her and retreats. After getting Olminyu to a safe place, he thanks her for saving his life. He also remarks that Joan has frightening power, but his intuition tells him she is a rookie, as it seems she is boasting that she has power and wants to be noticed for it. After he asks how many walls can she make, Olminyu states she can create 2 more walls. Toyohisa asks her to do as he says and then escape into the forest, as staying here could be dangerous for her. Gilles and Yoichi keep clashing, with Gilles demonstrating his raw strength, but Yoichi manages to evade all of his attacks. He keeps piercing him with arrows, hitting several vital spots, but Gilles still stands. Gilles states that his journey hasn't been completed, thus he isn't finished, which reminds Yoichi of Benkei. Meanwhile, Minamoto no Yoshitsune observes the combat and also gets excited. At that exact time, Nobunaga tells the elves how easy it is to defeat the scary cavalry in a forest. As he orders, the elves easily kill the cavalry. Joan burns the forest to find Toyohisa and threatens him to come, otherwise she will burn the forest and the castle. But then Toyohisa appears behind her and tells her he can't let her do that. Even though it is run down, it's still their castle. Joan then cuts his left and right path, telling him he won't be able to escape this time. Still, Toyohisa tells her he doesn't plan to. Then Olminyu creates a wall behind him and he steps on it, biting his sword, and shouts to Olminyu. Olminyu creates a second wall on the bottom of the first one with the help of talismans and launches Toyohisa straight ahead towards Joan, kicking her and sending her straight into a well, while commenting he was waiting for her to stand close to the well. As Joan falls into the well and sees the water, she remembers how desperately she sought it. Even though she had fought for her country, they still burned her alive and called her a witch. When she was almost dead, Easy showed up and asked her to come with her. Inside the well, Toyohisa realizes that Joan is a woman and wonders why she is wearing armor and fighting, and that taking a woman's head is not a feat. He tells her to leave and act like a woman, but she gets angry and explains she fought for France. Still, suddenly, he knocks her with his head, commenting he doesn't know what France is, and now he must take Gilles' head, as he won't be able to face his father if he doesn't take a single good head. Meanwhile, Yoichi is fighting a challenging battle, as his foe, Gilles, would not even die after taking so many arrows. Yoichi then manages to shoot Gilles in the eye, but he still isn't dying, and he even manages to capture Yoichi and starts choking him with his chains. Nobunaga instantly calls the elves to start shooting at Gilles. Still, even after being hit multiple times from behind, Gilles doesn't stop and keeps on choking Yoichi. Abe arrives with a group of drifters, asking Gilles if he hates the world and telling him he is roaming resentment, abandoned by the world. Gilles releases Yoichi and turns toward Abe. Then suddenly, Butch and Sundance start shooting at Gilles with the Gatling gun, blowing multiple gaps in him and cutting him in half. Having remained with only one arm and body from the waist up, Gilles crawls and gets his weapon. He then looks in the sky and sees Joan being rescued by the dragon and recalls how he decided to sin enough so that he could join Joan in hell. He discovered her in this world, but she no longer was the maiden and would surely go to hell, so he mutters that he'll go to hell first and wait for her. Gilles then then turns to salt and disappears. Abe then tells Nobunaga that he is Olminyu's master and hates ends. Nobunaga realizes he is also a drifter and asks him for his name. Abe tells him it's Abe no Harwakaira. Meanwhile, Minamoto no Yoshitsune tells Yoichi he is slacking and calls him stupid for engaging in one-on-one combat. He mocks him for believing he became a true warrior during the Genpei War and tells him to remember what exactly he did then. After hearing his voice, Yoichi realizes that Yoshitsune is also in this world and tells him he will no longer follow his orders. Yoshitsune tells Yoichi that they will see each other again and that it will be more entertaining next time. Afterward, Abe no Harwakaira reveals his name. Nobunaga asks if he means Abe no Sime, and Abe confirms him. Then Toyohisa comes and Nobunaga tells him it's Sime, but Toyohisa doesn't know who that is. Abe reveals he was also sent here by a strange man and realized his duty was to stop ends. After that, Toyohisa explains that he left the woman in the well, but as they check, she is gone. And Abe asks him why didn't he kill her as she was an end. Toyohisa then tells him he doesn't care about his rules and has no intention of taking a woman's head and killing her. He tells him they will not be pawns to an unknown man and that they are humans and follow their own principles. Afterward, Olminyu asks him who is the old man he brought, and Abe tells her it's Hannibal, but he is stuck in a dementia state. There was another man, Scipio. He was Hannibal's rival. Hannibal was clear-minded while he was with them, but on their way, they were attacked several times by the Black King's troop. During the assault, Scipio fell from the carriage into the forest, and they couldn't go look for him because of the enemy. Meanwhile, Scipio wanders through the forest and complains that he wants to return to Rome and take a bath. After walking for the whole day, he finds Kano Naoshi's place, and then suddenly, beastmen encircle him. Naoshi then arrives, carried like a monarch by the beastmen. Noticing Scipio, he begins yelling at him if he is American, and that he will beat him. Scipio wonders who that dangerous-looking barbarian is, but as he can't understand what language he speaks, he thinks he must be from some undeveloped country. However, he still must have heard about the Roman Empire. Scipio says Rome and Naoshi connected to Italy and are in a pact during World War II. He accepts it, but suddenly remembers that Italy shifted against them and then attacks Scipio and starts fighting him. On the other hand, looking at the empty cartridges, Sundance explains how they work. Nobunaga gets immersed, interested in the Gatling gun. Still, Abe explains that they researched gunpowder, but no blacksmith of the current age could produce them. Nobunaga tells him they are already making black powder, which surprises them. Nobunaga explains they are still waiting for the sulfur he asked Olminyu about. At that moment, Simu comes bringing the sulfur Olminyu asked for. Nobunaga then remarks the next thing is the dwarves. Abe begins to consider Nobunaga dangerous, as drifters act on their beliefs and don't have a common goal like the ends. He thinks that the one who founded Ort was a drifter who intended to save the starving masses, but as a result, endless wars erupted. Afterward, Abe asks Nobunaga what his plans are, and he explains that he will be freeing the dwarves next, and little by little, they will liberate the tribes under Ort's control. They will ally with the countries fighting Ort and will overtake Ort from the inside. After that, they will combine the tribes and create a multiracial federation where each race has the right to self-government. Toyohisa will have the military force and be commander-in-chief. Then Abe asks Nobunaga why he doesn't want to be king, but Nobunaga explains he isn't cut out for that. While he believes he can control people with profit and fear, he ends up realizing the hearts of men don't work like that. When he was betrayed, he first thought it was his son, but later learned that he was loyal and died for him. While on the other hand, Toyohisa isn't like him. He doesn't care about gain or loss, fear or intimidation. Still, as he is a fool, he needs assistance like Nobunaga. Later, Toyohisa goes to Hannibal and asks him if he is really senile. As Hannibal speaks about Carthage and invading Rome, Toyohisa charges at him with his sword, but Hannibal points a stick at his eye, asking if it's another Roman raid. Looking at his eyes, Toyohisa remarks that he is senile, but his eyes aren't dead yet. He tells Olminyu to care for Hannibal as he has the same eyes as his uncle. Later, Toyohisa announces to the elves that they will be freeing the dwarves and the elves are against it. Shara explains that they do not get along with the dwarves, and that the dwarves also didn't help them when Ord attacked them. Toyohisa tells them they are not forced to come with him, and that only true warriors should join him. As Toyohisa heads alone, Nobunaga is irritated that he is ruining everything. On the other hand, Shara explains to the other elves that his village will be going as Toyohisa has saved their lives. He also believes that the dwarves and elves had united in the beginning. They could have fought off Ord and not been enslaved, so he doesn't want to repeat the mistake of their previous generation. Meanwhile, Abe asks Toyohisa if he wants to change the world like Nobunaga, but Toyohisa tells him he wants heads, and a Satsuma warrior only cares about charging forward. Surprised, Abe explains that they need to return to headquarters and also look for Scipio, so he can't join him in war, but he should take Olminyu with him. The elves come out to join Toyohisa, and Butch throws Nobunaga a gun and comments that he is leaving the Gatling gun to him, as without bullets, it's useless. Saint Germain heads towards the elves with Alesta and Flame. They comment Gadolka is likely the next target of drifters, as they will try freeing the dwarves. Still, as it's Ord's armory, it is heavily guarded, but if they succeed, Ord Empire will certainly be finished. At Gadolka, the soldiers send a new wagon with weapons and armor to the western front because they were told by the headquarters the naval transport unit was destroyed, putting them in dire need of weapons and armor. So they have to make the dwarves increase production even if they die working. Suddenly, there was an explosion at the watchtower, killing soldiers in the process. Meanwhile, having eventually made the black powder, Nobunaga created bombs and started an attack on Gadolka. As the elves throw bombs, the soldiers panic, seeing all the explosions. Due to the explosion and smoke obscuring them, elves start to cause even more panic as they yell, pretending to be soldiers and telling everyone to retreat, retreat, or they all die. On the other hand, Toyohisa, with elves, goes on a killing spree, slaughtering any soldiers that get in his way. While this is going on, Yoichi, with other elves, uses explosive arrows to attack the soldiers. After clearing outside, they rush towards the castle gate. Suddenly, the castle gates open and fully armored troops come out. Seeing this, Toyohisa tells the elves to retreat, Olminyu to surround the troops with stone walls. After that, Toyohisa tells the elves to throw the bombs inside, obliterating their heavy infantry. Still, after defeating them, the enemy closes the gates when they get near the gate. Meanwhile, Nobunaga thinks of how they will enter the castle. He then wonders why they took Hannibal in with them. Still, suddenly, Hannibal makes the stairs signal with his arms, making Nobunaga realize something. He then quickly calls Olminyu using the magic sphere and instructs her and Yoichi on what they need to do. Yoichi then shoots arrows with Olminyu's talismans at the wall, creating a stone staircase on the wall as they activate. Nobunaga is more impressed by the sphere he can use to communicate with Olminyu than he is with the stairs. He believes instant messages can be useful in a war, as the magicians probably haven't thought of that and are just using the device to report their daily investigations. After climbing the stairs, Toyohisa and the elves enter the castle, but most soldiers hide behind smaller gates. Elves then propose they first move and free the dwarves, and then he explains the tales of how strong and rude they are. They head towards the buildings where the dwarves are locked up and are shocked to see how badly they are treated. Then one of the elves tells Shara about the past. Even when they surrendered, the dwarves kept fighting. He then says they were lucky to have just been made into serfs and not been enslaved in the mines or workshops like this. The dwarves then say it's ironic that the elves come to save them and ask them to free them because they are exhausted from this. Then he begs him to free them, and they will also fight with them no matter if they are elves, but the elves explain it's the drifters that had freed them. Toyohisa then comes and sees their empty bowls and proposes they first sit and eat. Nobunaga is shocked to learn that Toyohisa started eating in front of the enemy's eyes and even slaughtering horses and eating them. Nobunaga informs Olminyu to make rice porridge and use lots of water, as food doesn't digest well after starvation and can lead to death. He then remembers there is no rice, so he asks her to tell them to eat slowly. Afterward, Toyohisa tells the soldiers at the top of the gate that the dwarves are eating right now, and if they drop their weapons, they will be allowed to leave. Still, if they haven't done so, they will be killed when the dwarves are done eating. After much thought, the soldiers decide to give up and open the gates. Toyohisa tells them their lord needs to commit suicide. Still, as he refuses, he cuts his head, telling him he isn't fit for a lord. Seeing this, the soldiers flee flee. Yoichi prepares to chase the soldiers as he is used to such orders. Still, Toyohisa tells Yoichi not to pursue them, and no one will order him anymore as this is their battle. Meanwhile, hiding outside the En's castle, the Octoberist and Adventurer Guild member observes the Black King. Also, both are stunned to see one of the 6 great dragons, the Bronze Dragon, being there. They are then shocked when they witness the monsters farming. They remark that Abe was right, and the Black King is different from the other Ns, as his intentions are not just destroying the world, but becoming the monster's savior and replacing the humans. Thanks for watching. If this series is the most liked in my current production of anime recaps, I will make a part 4. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe and help me make more content.